My younger brother Tyler, a 31-year-old male, had convinced me, a 35-year-old male, to come to this family gathering at my parents' house for Thanksgiving. He'd been calling me for weeks, saying things like, "It'll be different this time and everyone misses you and the kids." I'd skipped the last few family get-togethers because, honestly, being around my family is like voluntarily sticking my hand in a garbage disposal. But Tyler kept insisting, and I figured maybe, just maybe, things had changed. For some context about me, I work as a financial advisor for a mid-sized firm downtown. It's nothing flashy or Silicon Valley tech bro, but I make good money helping people invest and manage their portfolios. I coach my son's Little League team, volunteer at the local food bank when I can, and generally have my life together. I've been married to Kate, a 33-year-old female, for 11 years now. We met in college. She was this stunning psychology major who somehow found my econ major self-interesting. She's still gorgeous, especially now, carrying our third child. We have 2 kids already, Jake, a 10-year-old male, and Emma, a 7-year-old female. Jake's a carbon copy of me, athletic, outgoing, already obsessed with sports stats, which makes my financial advisor heart proud. Emma's quieter but scary smart, already reading at a 6th grade level and constantly asking questions that make my head spin. Kate's 8 months pregnant with our third, another boy we're planning to name Ethan. Despite my solid career and happy family life, I've always been the family disappointment according to my parents. Why? Because I didn't follow my dad into his law practice. Because I married Kate, who my mother thought wasn't refined enough. Translation: Kate doesn't take my mother's nonsense and calls her out on it. Because I don't kiss their asses like my sister Melissa does. Anyway, back to Thanksgiving. I showed up with Jake and Emma, thinking it would be nice for them to see their grandparents and hang with their cousins. Kate stayed home because she was having some Braxton Hicks contractions and wanted to rest. I brought a nice bottle of Macallan 12 for my dad, not cheap, and an arrangement of fall flowers for my mom. I even made sure the kids were dressed nicely, Jake in a button-up shirt and Emma in her favorite dress with the sunflowers. I really was trying. The second we walked in the door, I could feel the temperature in the room drop about 10 degrees. The dining room table was all decked out. Fancy china plates, real silverware, crystal wine glasses, the whole Martha Stewart fantasy. Everyone was already seated. My parents, Richard, a 67-year-old male, and Susan, a 65-year-old female, my sister Melissa, a 33-year-old female, her husband, Brad, a 35-year-old male, and their spoiled kids, Aiden, a 9-year-old male, and Sophie, a 7-year-old female. But guess what? No places for me and my kids, not even some paper plates or a folding table for us. My mom pretended to be busy adjusting the turkey, while my dad stood there with his arms crossed over his chest, looking like I'd tracked dog mess across his precious Persian rug. The look on his face made it clear I wasn't expected or wanted there. "Why did you bring the kids? We didn't invite you." "Why are you even here?" he said, his voice cold as ice. Those words hit hard, especially with Emma hiding behind my leg and Jake looking confused as hell. My stomach clenched, and I felt that familiar anger rising, the one I usually channel into my deadlifts at the gym. My dad finally said, "Well, I suppose you can come in," like he's the king granting an audience to a peasant. "But there's no space for you at the table. The other grandkids already have their spots," meaning Melissa's kids, the real grandchildren. I glanced over at Melissa, who was seated at my father's right hand, the position of honor. She had this smug little smile on her face, like she'd finally won some competition I didn't even know we were having. Her husband Brad was already half in the bag, judging by his flushed face and the way he was slurring his words as he talked about his fantasy football league with my dad. "You could eat in the kitchen," my mother suggested, not even looking at me directly. "Or maybe come back later when we're done. Come back later like we were delivery drivers or something." I stood there for a second, keeping my cool despite wanting to flip the whole damn table. I could feel Jake shifting uncomfortably next to me, and Emma was still hiding behind my leg. I had 2 choices: slink away with my tail between my legs, or stand my ground. I chose the latter. "So Melissa is the golden child now, huh?" I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "Now that she's moved up in her career, you don't need my help anymore?" Melissa rolled her eyes, like a teenager getting lectured about her curfew. "Help? No one relies on you, Mason. Don't be so dramatic." That's when something clicked. For years, I'd been helping my parents with their mortgage payments every month without fail. I'd been sending them $800 to help cover their overpriced McMansion that they refused to downsize from. When they got behind on property taxes 3 years ago, I paid the $3,600 bill without complaint. When their roof needed repairs last year, I covered the $5,000 deductible their insurance wouldn't pay. all while trying to save for my own kids' college funds and prepare for our third child. I felt this weight lift off my shoulders, like I'd been carrying around a sandbag for years and suddenly realized I could just put it down. "That's great," I said, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "That means I don't have to cover the mortgage payments anymore." "That's on Melissa now. You should have seen their faces." It was like I'd announced I had their social security numbers tattooed on my ass. My dad's face went from smug to panic in 2 seconds flat. My mom suddenly found me very interesting, her head whipping around so fast I'm surprised she didn't get whiplash. Melissa straightened up in her chair, like someone had jammed a broomstick up her spine. "Wait, what?" she squeaked, her voice suddenly an octave higher. I just shrugged my shoulders, feeling calmer than I had in years. "You don't need me, right? So I'll stop sending those extra payments. Melissa can take care of it from now on with her big promotion." The silence in the room was so thick you could have cut it with one of my mom's fancy butter knives. It was almost poetic how the atmosphere changed. 1 minute, I'm the family embarrassment they didn't want to acknowledge. The next, I'm the most important person in the room. Melissa tried to laugh it off, a nervous, high-pitched sound that didn't reach her eyes. "Come on, Mason, don't be ridiculous. You wouldn't do that to Mom and Dad." My father cleared his throat, his lawyer face sliding into place. "Now, Mason, let's not be hasty. Your mother and I appreciate your contributions to the household expenses. Contributions, like I was dropping a few bucks in a collection plate, not keeping a roof over their heads." "Dad," Melissa hissed, "what is he talking about? What payments?" Interesting. So my sister didn't even know I'd been bankrolling our parents all this time. That explained a lot about her attitude toward me. I looked at my kids. "All right, guys, let's go. We're not wanted here." "Are you really doing this?" my father snapped, his face turning an impressive shade of crimson. "On Thanksgiving? You just said we weren't welcome," I replied, keeping my voice steady though I wanted to yell. "I'm just respecting your wishes." Melissa looked at our mom, then back at me, the reality of the situation finally dawning on her. "You wouldn't actually stop paying, would you?" I smiled and looked her dead in the eyes. "Watch me." Taking my kids by the hand, I walked toward the door. That's when I noticed Tyler standing in the back of the room near the kitchen entrance. He'd been quiet the whole time, hands in his pockets, looking at the floor. Unlike the others, he looked genuinely ashamed of what had happened. "Tyler," I acknowledged him with a nod. "I'm sorry, man," he mumbled, barely audible. "I didn't know it would be like this." I believed him. Tyler had always been caught in the middle. Not the golden child like Melissa, but not the designated family ATM like me either, just sort of there. "Not your fault," I told him. Then I walked out and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows, feeling the cold November air hit my face like a refreshing slap. In the car, I took a deep breath, my hand shaking slightly as I gripped the steering wheel. I hadn't planned on cutting them off financially today, but now that I'd said it out loud, it felt absolutely right. As we drove away, Emma asked from the back seat, her voice small, "Why don't Grandma and Grandpa want us at their house?" I caught her eyes in the rearview mirror and took a deep breath before answering, keeping my tone casual so they wouldn't pick up on how furious I was. "Some people just don't know how to treat family right, sweetie. Your aunt, too. But don't worry, we've got each other, and that's what matters." Jake, being older and more perceptive, wasn't so easily satisfied. "Were you really giving them money, Dad? Smart kid, nothing gets past him." "Yeah, buddy, I was helping them out with their house payment for a long time, but not anymore." "Because they were mean to us?" Emma asked. "Partly," I admitted, "but mostly because they don't appreciate it. When people don't value your help, sometimes the best thing to do is stop helping." Jake nodded thoughtfully. "Like when I kept helping Trevor with math, but he never said thanks and then called me a nerd?" I chuckled. "Exactly like that, bud." The ride home was quiet after that, the kids lost in their thoughts. I called Kate to warn her about what had happened, not wanting her to be blindsided by the kids' questions when we got home. Kate was waiting in the living room, her face a storm cloud. Being 8 months pregnant with our third kid, she sat there, one hand resting on her belly, the other gripping her water glass so tight I thought it might shatter. "They did that in front of the kids?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "Yeah, they absolutely did. Made it clear we weren't part of the family." "What did they say exactly?" she demanded. So I told her everything, not sugarcoating any of it. She shook her head, her free hand clenching into a fist. "Then they're not part of our family anymore. Period. That's one of the reasons I love my wife. She doesn't take nonsense from anyone, not even my parents. She's always been fiercely protective of our kids and me." "I told them I'm cutting off the mortgage payments," I admitted. Kate's eyebrows shot up, then she smiled slowly. "Good. It's about time." The kids were hungry since we'd missed out on Thanksgiving dinner, so we ordered pizza and had an impromptu movie night instead. As I watched them laughing at The Incredibles, Curled up with Kate on the couch, I realized this was a much better Thanksgiving than anything my parents could have offered. The next week, it was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I canceled the automatic transfer to my parents' account. No more $800 a month down the drain. No more late-night calls from my mom asking for just a little extra this month. No more feeling like an ATM with legs. It was just me, my kids, and my pregnant wife, getting ready for our new baby boy. I kept waiting for the guilt to hit me, but it never did. Instead, I felt lighter, happier. I took the money I would have sent my parents and put it into our baby fund instead. I hit the gym harder than usual that week, channeling all that anger into my deadlifts. It felt great to set a new personal record of 385 pounds while knowing I was keeping my money for my family. My parents called a few times in the days after Thanksgiving. I let the calls go to voicemail. The messages started out angry. "How dare you embarrass us like that?" Then they shifted to guilt-tripping. "After everything we've done for you." And finally they landed on desperate, "Please call us back. We need to talk about the mortgage." I deleted them all without responding. Melissa tried texting me too, real mature Mason. "Mom and Dad are upset. Fix this." I blocked her number. Then, out of nowhere, Tyler showed up at my house on a Tuesday night. When I opened the door, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. His normally neat appearance was disheveled, wrinkled shirt, stubble on his face, dark circles under his eyes. "Hey," he said, "can I come in?" Tyler never just drops by without texting first. Something was definitely wrong. I let him in. He sat at the kitchen table and ran a hand over his face before finally speaking. Melissa lost her job. I couldn't help but laugh, the sound echoing in the quiet kitchen. Already? Didn't she just get that big promotion she was bragging about at Thanksgiving? "Yeah," he said, taking a long drink from his soda. "They fired her yesterday. She's completely screwed." "Let me guess," I said. "She spent every penny before she even got her first paycheck from the new position." "Exactly," he said. "Bought some designer handbags, put a deposit down on a new BMW, started renovating their kitchen. Thought she was hot stuff. Then, boom, gone." I shook my head, not even surprised. Melissa had always been impulsive with money. When we were kids, she'd spend her allowance on the first day, then beg our parents for more. They always gave in. Some things never change. "What was the job again?" I asked, realizing I hadn't paid much attention to her bragging at previous family gatherings. "VP of Marketing at Pinnacle Solutions," Tyler said. "Big software company." Nearly doubled her salary from her last job. I whistled. That was a serious position. How the hell did she even get that job? Last I knew, she was a mid-level marketing manager with no tech experience. Tyler stared at the table. "That's part of the problem. She, might have exaggerated her qualifications a bit. She lied on her resume," I translated. "Pretty much," he admitted. "But that's not even the worst part." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite myself. "What do you mean?" "She didn't just get fired," he continued, lowering his voice though it was just us in the house. "She got caught in some shady stuff. This guy at work, her new boss, she thought they were dating or something. Turns out, he was embezzling money from the company, and somehow Melissa got tangled up in it. Whether she knew or not doesn't matter. She's on the hook. She's not just unemployed, she could face criminal charges." "Holy hell," I muttered, genuinely surprised. I always knew Melissa was desperate for status, but I didn't think she'd cross that line. "Yeah," Tyler said, shaking his head. "The guy was siphoning funds from the marketing budget into fake vendor accounts. Since Melissa was signing off on these expenditures as the new VP, it looks like she was in on it." "Was she?" I asked bluntly. Tyler shrugged. She claimed she didn't know, that she trusted him because they were sleeping together. But who knows with Melissa? She's always wanted the shortcut to success. "So what does this have to do with me?" Tyler fidgeted with his soda bottle, picking at the label. "Mom and Dad are losing their minds. They were counting on her to help with the bills now that you've stopped the mortgage payment. It was due last week, and they don't have it." I leaned forward, arms on the table. "So what? They want me to clean up Melissa's mess too?" Tyler didn't answer right away. That told me everything I needed to know. I laughed, a harsh sound even to my own ears. Unbelievable. Just a week ago, they threw me and my kids out like garbage, made it crystal clear we weren't part of the family. And now, suddenly, they remember I exist? Tyler sighed, looking tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. "Look, I'm not saying you owe them anything, I just figured you should know what's happening." "Good," I replied without hesitation. "Let them figure it out for once." Tyler stared at me. "You don't mean that." "Oh, I do," I said firmly, crushing my empty soda can. "They made their choice." Melissa laughed in my face. Dad practically shoved us out the door. Mom couldn't even look at my kids. They wanted to treat me like I was nothing. Well, now they get to see what nothing really feels like. Tyler looked down, a muscle in his jaw twitching. "I get it. I really do. I wouldn't help them either if I were you. But? I prompted, hearing the unspoken word. It's still hard to watch them panic, he admitted. Dad's been having chest pains. Mom keeps crying. Melissa's drinking herself into oblivion. It's a mess. I felt a twinge of something. Not quite guilt, maybe concern, but I pushed it away. Not my circus, not my monkeys, I said. Tyler nodded slowly. Fair enough. We talked a bit longer about less dramatic topics. His job at the accounting firm, the baby preparations, his on-again, off-again relationship with his girlfriend. When he left, he seemed lighter, like sharing the family drama had relieved some of his burden. Thanks for having me, he said at the door, and for listening. Anytime, bro, I said, meaning it. Tyler wasn't the problem in our family. He was just caught in the crossfire. After he left, I thought about what he told me. Melissa facing potential criminal charges, my parents unable to pay their mortgage. It was a disaster, no doubt about it. But for the first time, it wasn't my disaster to fix. I went upstairs where Kate was folding baby clothes in the nursery. Her face was peaceful, focused on the tiny onesies and socks. I wrapped my arms around her from behind, my hands resting on her belly. Everything okay? She asked, leaning back against me. Yeah, I said, and meant it. Everything's fine. That night, around 1 a.m, my phone started ringing. I'd been in a deep sleep, one arm thrown over Kate's pregnant form, and the sound dragged me unwillingly into consciousness. It was my mother. I let it ring, hoping it would go to voicemail. Then it rang again, and again, and again. I ignored it, watching the screen light up in the darkness, casting an eerie blue glow across the bedroom ceiling. Half asleep, Kate mumbled, "Who keeps calling?" My mother, I replied, silencing the phone. She frowned, her eyes still closed. At this hour? Yep. I turned the phone face down and rolled over, wrapping my arm around her again. Just as I was drifting back to sleep, my phone buzzed with a text, then another, and another. Finally, I picked it up, squinting at the bright screen. A text from Tyler, "Pick up. Dad's in trouble." My stomach dropped. Despite everything, he was still my father. I slipped out of bed and into the hallway before calling Tyler back. He answered instantly. "Mason, you need to come over. Dad's having chest pains. Mom's freaking out." I ran a hand through my hair, suddenly wide awake. "How serious is it?" "He doesn't look good, man. He's pale, sweating, can barely talk." Mom tried calling Melissa first, but she's not picking up. Apparently, she's been drinking heavily since she got fired, and now she's ignoring everyone. I couldn't help but smirk in the darkness of the hallway. "You mean the favorite child doesn't want to handle family emergencies?" What a surprise. "Mason, come on, this is serious," Tyler said, his voice tight with stress. I paused. Part of me wanted to say, "Not my problem," and go back to sleep. But another part knew I'd never forgive myself if something happened to my dad, no matter how much of an ass he'd been. I let out a breath. Fine. I'll be there soon. I went back into the bedroom to get dressed. Kate sat up, turning on the bedside lamp. The light cast shadows across her very pregnant belly. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice thick with sleep. "Dad's having chest pains. Tyler thinks it might be serious." She was immediately alert. "You're really going?" "I just want to make sure it's not actually serious," I said, pulling on a pair of jeans. "I'm not giving them a cent, though." She studied my face but didn't argue. "Be careful. Don't let them manipulate you again." I leaned down and kissed her. "I won't. Go back to sleep. I'll call you if anything major happens." The drive to my parents' house took 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. I kept picturing my dad clutching his chest, gasping for breath. Despite our rocky relationship, I didn't want him to suffer. I didn't want him to die. When I got there, the scene was exactly as dramatic as I'd expected. The living room lights were all blazing, giving the place a harsh, exposed feel. My dad was slumped in his recliner, pale and sweating, one hand clutching his chest. His face was contorted in pain. My mom was pacing around him, wringing her hands, mascara streaked down her face, though it was the middle of the night. She rushed toward me the second I walked in. "Mason, thank God you're here. Your father, he can't breathe properly. I don't know what to do." I stared at her, suddenly realizing something that should have been obvious. "Did you call 911? She blinked, like the thought hadn't crossed her mind. I pulled out my phone. "Jesus Christ, Mom." As I called for an ambulance, she kept pacing and whimpering. "We didn't know who to call. Melissa isn't answering. We thought maybe you could drive him to the hospital." Then something clicked in my mind. "Why did you call me before calling for help?" I asked, watching her face carefully. She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I didn't know what to do. "Bullshit," I said flatly. "You called me because you wanted me to fix it, like always." She didn't deny it. The paramedics arrived within minutes, their efficiency a stark contrast to my parents' panic. They checked my dad, hooked him up to a monitor, and examined him closely. One of them turned to me. "It's not a heart attack," he said, his voice calm and professional, "but his blood pressure is dangerously high. 190/110. That's stroke territory. We're going to take him in for observation overnight and get him started on Medicat Ion." I almost laughed. I bet I know exactly what's causing the stress. The paramedic gave me a knowing look. Family issues often trigger these episodes, especially around the holidays. They loaded him into the ambulance. My mother clung to my arm like a drowning person. "Mason, please," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "Go with him. I can't drive myself right now." I looked down at her. Her hair was a mess, her face bare of the makeup she never left the house without. She looked old, vulnerable. But I also remembered how she couldn't even look at my children a week ago. "Tyler can take you," I said, nodding to my brother, who was hovering in the background. "But I need you," she insisted, her fingers digging into my arm. "Please." "Why?" I asked, genuinely curious. "A week ago, you couldn't even set a place for me at your table. What's changed?" Her eyes were red and puffy. "We need help. The bank called today about the mortgage. We're behind on payments." I let the words sink in. A week ago, I meant nothing to this woman. Now I was suddenly their only hope. I met her gaze and said, "No." Then I turned and walked out, ignoring her calls behind me. For the first time in years, I felt completely free. I had spent my entire adult life believing that if I didn't hold everything together, my family would fall apart. But the truth was, they'd been using me all along. As I drove home through the quiet, pre-dawn streets, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. The next morning, I was making breakfast when Kate came into the kitchen, her pregnant belly entering the room a second before the rest of her. She poured herself some orange juice and watched me flip pancakes for the kids. "So, how bad was it?" she asked. I shrugged, sliding a perfect golden pancake onto the growing stack. "No heart attack, just high blood pressure from stress." She raised an eyebrow. "And?" "I told my mom no," I said, pouring more batter onto the griddle. "She wanted me to drive her to the hospital. I told her Tyler could do it." Her eyes widened. "You actually said no? Just like that?" "Yep." Walked right out. She came over and kissed me, her belly bumping against mine. "I'm proud of you. It's about time they learned they can't use you anymore." Jake and Emma came bounding into the kitchen, still in their pajamas, hair wild from sleep. "Pancakes," Emma squealed, climbing onto her chair. We had a normal family breakfast. No drama, no guilt, no financial stress, just us. It felt good. After dropping the kids at school, I headed to the gym. I needed to clear my head, and nothing does that better than a good workout. I was in the middle of a set of bench presses when my phone buzzed. Tyler again. "Hey," I grunted, setting the barbell back on the rack. "Dad's being discharged," he said without preamble. "They've got him on blood pressure Medicat Ion. He's supposed to rest and avoid stress." I wiped sweat from my forehead with a towel. "Good to know." There was a pause. "They're really in trouble, Mason." I sighed, sitting up on the bench. "We're not doing this again, Tyler." I know, he said quickly. "I'm not asking you to help. I don't know what to do." "Mom's talking about taking out a payday loan to cover the mortgage." I winced. Payday loans were financial suicide. That's a terrible idea. "Yeah, no kidding," Tyler agreed. "But they're desperate." I thought for a moment. "Look, as a financial advisor, here's what I'd tell anyone in their situation. They need to call the bank and explain the situation. They might be able to work out a payment plan. If not, they should consider selling the house. It's too big for them anyway." Tyler was quiet for a moment. "I've been telling them that for years. They won't listen." "Not your problem," I said firmly. "Not mine either." "Yeah," he said, sounding resigned. "You're right." We hung up, and I finished my workout, trying to push the conversation out of my mind. But it lingered. Not because I felt responsible, but because I was genuinely curious about how this would all play out. For the first time, I wasn't rushing in to fix everything. I was simply an observer to my family's chaos. 3 days later, I was at the office when my phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. "Melissa's here at Mom and Dad's. She wants to talk to you." I laughed out loud, earning a curious look from my assistant. "Not happening," I texted back. "Mason, listen, it's bad, really bad. She's facing embezzlement charges. The company is pressing charges against her and her boss. She could go to jail." I put my phone down and focused on the client file in front of me. Not my problem. But my phone kept buzzing. "She's desperate, man. She's been crying for hours. Dad's still not doing well, and the bank sent a foreclosure notice yesterday." I typed back, "So what, Tyler? They made it clear where I stand in this family." There was a pause, then "Just come over. Hear them out. That's all I'm asking." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to continue my clean break from my toxic family. But another part was curious. What could Melissa possibly say to me now? What could any of them say? Against my better judgment, I texted back, "Fine." After work, the rest of the day dragged. I found it hard to concentrate on my client portfolios when I kept imagining the showdown to come. By the time I left the office, I was a mix of irritation and anticipation. I called Kate on the way. Tyler wants me to stop by my parents' house. Apparently, Melissa wants to talk. Kate's concern was immediate. Are you sure that's a good idea? Probably not, I admitted, but I'm curious what they could possibly say at this point. Just remember everything they've done, she said. Don't let them manipulate you. I won't, I promised. I'll be home for dinner. When I pulled up to the house, I noticed Melissa's car parked haphazardly in the driveway, one tire on the lawn. Classy. I took a deep breath before getting out of my car, reminding myself that I was in control here. They needed me. I didn't need them. I walked in without knocking. The scene in the living room was like something out of a bad drama. My father sat in his chair looking frail and old, a stark contrast to his usual commanding presence. My mother hovered nearby, wringing her hands. Melissa sat on the couch, her normally perfect appearance completely disheveled, makeup smeared, hair unwashed, wearing what looked like pajama pants and a stained sweatshirt. When she saw me, she actually stood up, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "Mason," she said, her voice hoarse. I stayed by the door, arms crossed. "Tyler said you wanted to talk." She nodded frantically. "I need your help. We all do." She gestured around the room. "I messed up. I know that now. I got involved with the wrong person at work, and he—" She trailed off, starting to cry again. My mother stepped forward. "Melissa is in serious trouble, Mason. The police came to question her yesterday, and the bank says we have 30 days before they take the house." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "And now you want my help? After throwing me and my kids out at Thanksgiving? After treating me like garbage for years while I paid your bills?" Melissa actually got down on her knees in front of me, kneeling on the carpet. "Please, Mason. I know I've been horrible to you. I was jealous. You've always had everything together. Good job, happy marriage, great kids. I wanted Mom and Dad to be proud of me like they are of you." I stared at her, genuinely shocked by this revelation. "Are you kidding me right now? They've never been proud of me. They've treated me like an ATM, nothing more." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "That's not true. They always talked about how responsible you are, how successful. I could never measure up. That's why I took that promotion, even though I wasn't qualified. That's why I got involved with my boss. I wanted what you have." I glanced at my parents, trying to gauge if this was just another manipulation tactic. My mother was crying now, too. "It's true, Mason. We've taken you for granted. We assumed you'd always be there for us, and we took advantage of that." My father couldn't meet my eyes. He stared at his hands, looking defeated. I looked around the room, at my father avoiding my eyes, my mother crying, Melissa on her knees. It was pathetic. And yet I felt no satisfaction in seeing them brought so low, just a deep weariness. "So, what exactly do you want from me?" I asked, though I already knew. Melissa wiped her nose with her sleeve. "I need a lawyer, a good one, and Mom and Dad need help with the mortgage until I can get back on my feet." I laughed again. "You think I'm just going to open my wallet after how you treated me? After finding out you wasted the money I already gave them?" They all looked confused. Tyler stepped in from the kitchen, where he'd been hovering. "They don't know that I told you." I turned to my parents. "Tyler told me what you did with the $4,500 I gave you for the mortgage 3 months ago. You gave it to Melissa, didn't you?" My father couldn't meet my eyes. My mother stammered. "We thought she said she would pay it back after her promotion. So, not only did you take advantage of me for years, but you lied to me about where the money was going. And now you want more?" Melissa was sobbing now, actual ugly crying with snot running down her face. "Please, Mason. I'll pay you back, I swear. I just need help getting out of this mess." I stood there for a moment looking at my broken family. Then I smiled. "No, no," Melissa repeated, as if she couldn't understand the word.
"I'm not giving you a cent. Any of you. You made your choices. Now live with them."
My mother grabbed my arm. "Mason, please. We could lose everything." I removed her hand. "You already lost the only thing that mattered. Your son who actually gave a damn about you." As I turned to leave, Melissa called after me. "What am I supposed to do? I could go to jail." I paused at the door. "Should have thought about that before you laughed in my face while my kids were standing right there. Actions have consequences, Melissa. Welcome to the real world." I walked out feeling 10 feet tall. I got in my car and drove home to my real family, the people who actually loved and respected me. 2 weeks after I walked out on my pathetic family, Tyler called to update me. Melissa took a plea deal. No jail time, but she has to pay back $75,000, and she's on probation. She lost her apartment, sold her car, and she's working at a call center now. "Karma's a bitch," I said, feeling nothing but satisfaction. "Your parents are losing the house," Tyler continued. "They're getting foreclosure notices." "Not my problem," I replied. A month later, Kate gave birth to our son, Ethan. I didn't tell my parents. Why would I? They weren't family anymore. When my mother somehow found out and called begging to see him, I blocked her number. When they sent gifts for Emma's birthday, I donated them to Goodwill without telling my kids. Tyler moved in with us after my parents kicked him out for taking my side. He's been great with the kids and is saving for his own place. It's been 4 months since I cut them off. My life is better in every way. I sleep better. I've set new personal records at the gym. I've added $35,000 to my kids' college funds, money that would have gone to supporting my parents and sister. Do I miss them? No. I miss the idea of having real parents who love you for who you are, not what you can give them. But the people they really are, the ones who threw me and my kids out, then expected me to rescue them when Melissa's life fell apart? No, I don't miss them at all. My real family is right here: Kate, Jake, Emma, Ethan, and Tyler. The people who actually give a damn about me. For those saying I should be the bigger man and help them, screw that noise. I was the bigger man for years while they took advantage of me. Some bridges deserve to be burned.